Hey there, guys. So, this here is going to be a video about what to me fundamentally is, I think you would probably say, the ultimate example of evil on this rock, this planet called Earth. So, it's this is a video about something that fundamentally is so, oh my god, just even really thinking about the depth and the level of malevolence in what I want to talk about tonight, it makes my bones hurt. It is ridiculous to talk about this stuff as a result of the fact that we don't yet have a free society. Because when we have a free society, we won't have to worry about something like this existing, but because we fundamentally still live under statism, we find ourselves with this problem still. And if I think a lot of you out there will know what I'm about to say, but for those of you who haven't yet figured it out, I'm going to make a really good case as to why I think there's nothing more evil in the world than fiat currency. To me, fiat currency, as I said, is like the ultimate lie, fundamentally, and the ultimate evil as a result. The world does not make sense from an economic perspective until you are willing to free your mind of a couple of very fundamentally important illusions. And the first illusion you have to free your mind of is the idea that the economy is divided by trade through individuals, but through nation states. And this by itself fundamentally means the world looks completely messed up. Like, there are no borders for nations. You can't see them. And there's a very important reason that you cannot see national borders. I'll let you figure out what it is. But you cannot see national borders. They are not there. Now, there are men there with guns, but that does not mean that there is a nation around where these men with guns are standing. So it is very important to note that the way the world economy looks cannot make sense until you accept the fact that the way the world economy looks is fundamentally flawed, obfuscated from reality, because people are still trading inside the belief that nation states are still actually real, as opposed to just completely false. And the other thing that people don't address more often than not is the fact that there is not a universal standard in money. We have a couple hundred, I think, fiat standards in money. So all of international trade is then therefore distorted by the interactions of the overall economy as a result of fiat currency and the idea that I'm an American. Where, it's like I am owned by the American government. It doesn't. The world's not going to make sense until you admit the obvious. You are not an American. You're just, you belong. You're ruled by the United States government. A man in France is not. He's not French. He's owned by the French government. It's just that, we don't have 100% taxpayers anymore. We did get rid of slavery, abject slavery, so that was fantastic. But we still don't have a free society on any level yet. We're still working towards it, and it has not yet arrived. And this is fundamental and important to understand, that there is no such thing as freedom yet. There is personal freedom, where you can live your life as if you're free, which is very important, and live your life as if government already didn't exist. But fundamentally, we are still unfortunately surrounded by people who still believe in systems of ethics that are not true. And fiat currency just takes the cake, man. Oh, how it's disguised. It's like, if we called it, counterfeiting, the scam would be obvious, but all of the entire world is pretty much educated by governments themselves, so we don't question these things. But when we do, we finally understand that the level of disruption to peace and to trade that fiat currency has brought about, staggers the imagination. The amount of wealth that has been extracted from society through fiat currency and counterfeiting. An example is my grandparents bought their house for $19,000, and today it's worth about $150,000. And you think, quite an appreciation. It's like, not. Bruno voice. Borat voice. Oh, excuse me, my gosh. But it's not. When you understand that, if you measure the house in the price of gold, you find that my grandparents purchased the house for roughly 540 ounces of gold if you divided it by the price at the time, $35 per ounce. Today, you could sell it for only about 100 ounces of gold. Now that disparity, and this isn't the maximum price that we've seen in terms of this before, got down to as low as 80 ounces of gold at one point, and who knows what it will be in the future. But that disparity between buying it for 540 ounces of gold and being able to sell it for 100 ounces of gold, that represents the level of wealth that has been stolen from us, counterfeited out of the currency we use, or if you really prefer euphemism, extracted from our families over the past 100 years. It is ridiculous what has been taken from us through this centralized use of currency, of counterfeiting, at the point of a gun. When you have your mind blown, check out Bernard von Nothaus and the Liberty Dollar. You will see what happens if you try to set up a competing currency to the Federal Reserve note, which is the Federal Reserve, of course, the central bank in America. There's central banks all over the earth. They all distort the economies. They disrupt harmony. Like, people think that anarchy is chaos. No, statism is chaos. Anarchy will actually accomplish harmony among people on earth. Let there be no doubt. This is chaos. This is chaos. We live in a chaotic, fascist, dictatorial planet still, unfortunately. We will free ourselves, let there be no doubt. It takes some time, but we will get there. And when that happens, there won't exist these fiat currencies anymore, these government decree currencies that use violence to stifle competition. But yeah, it'll be a fantastic thing to see what happens when we understand how little force, how eventually, in a really truly free society, we can even get rid of things, all manipulations of involuntary and coercive transactions can one day disappear. Because as I've said before, once we stop believing in statism, it's like 90 to 95, 99 maybe +% of coercion will be gone. And that is a tremendous leap forward. And from there, with just hop, skips, and jumps, get into a truly peaceful, truly prosperous, and the level of wealth. I mean, if in 150 years, my great-great-great-great-great-grandkids, or whatever it is, can visit, 43 star systems in their lifetime, and somebody else's kid might be able to visit, 73, I'm not going to care that much, because capitalism, proprietarianism, true peace, true equality among people will actually produce wonderful and beautiful, sustainable, and technological advancement, the likes of which we could never dream possible. Oh my gosh, the amount of wealth in society that can finally be used to experiment and tinker with so much of who know what would happen if carbon fiber didn't cost 3 times as much as steel, but cost as much as steel. If the price dropped, what would skyscrapers look like? If there was so much carbon fiber in the world that we could create buildings, entire buildings out of carbon fiber, because it was just so abundant, because freedom worked so well, and liberty worked so well, and trade worked so well, because we were finally using universal principles of saying, let's not have any thieves in the world anymore, not one anywhere. What is the dream of anarchy capitalism? I've said this before, I'll say it again. The dream of anarchy capitalism is a world without one single thief. And we can get there. It's possible. And when it happens, the level of wealth in society will stagger the imagination of what we even think possible. I mean, what happened, the moral, material consequences, what happened in society when we ended the 100% tax bracket, and we got this tremendous flowering of wealth, like that is nothing compared to what happens when we finally fundamentally reject the belief in any tax bracket. That the level of wealth that will be we won't work. Like, how will you deal with the poor in a free society? You're not going to have the poor in a free society. It will go away. It will just disappear, and you'll even eventually get to the point of where you'll have, like, two parents can work for 5 years each and accumulate enough wealth to both retire and both stay at home. Like, one of the great advantages of all the material benefits that had accrued throughout the West, and eventually in the East because of a slight adoption towards capitalism, even though we all still have governments, was that one parent could stay home and be with the child. And in the future, both parents will be able to retire and have kids at the same time. And it will get even better from there. So it will be a wonderful, beautiful thing to see what happens with the levels of prosperity once we have a free society, once we get rid of these fiat currencies and taxation and all of these abridgments of property rights that still masquerade around the world even to this day as sources of virtue, even though they're absolute abominations and should be recognized as them. And the case needs to be made over and over and over and over again that this is not a moral system. And when we have a moral system, the material benefits, the material consequences of that wealth will be staggering to experience. So have a wonderful rest of the day, guys. Think about fiat currency and its role in the world, and really imagine and really represent and be capable of showing people and explaining to them what a truly free society will look like, with sound currency and with truly free markets where no one can steal, not one person on earth, anywhere. Not one person anywhere. Have a good night, guys.